Hello, everybody. I'm Scott Murdoch, the Chief Nutrition Officer for NutriStyle, and I'll be the moderator for today's AARP's Personalized Nutrition Free webinar titled Nourishing Winter Classics, a Dietitian's Guide to Smarter Comfort Foods. Just a quick housekeeping note about submitting questions. You will be able to submit questions for Alana during this webinar using the Q&A icon. It's at the bottom center of my display screen. So look for that Q&A icon. We'll try to answer as many questions as possible at the end of her presentation. In the event there are more questions than time allotted, I'll be selecting the most frequently asked questions and presenting them for discussion. Our presenter today is Alana Benito, who has a nutrition science degree from the University of Connecticut and is a registered and licensed dietitian nutritionist. She's the founder of the virtual medical nutrition therapy company called Vita Eats Nutrition, where she leads a team of registered dietitians that provide care for clients in an array of nutrition-related health conditions. Alana and her team of dietitians are also part of AARP's Personalized Nutrition Dietitian Network, offering AARP users 3 online sessions with a registered dietitian, along with the annual subscription to the dynamic meal plan creator tool. You can find all of this and more at nutrition.aarp.org. So without further ado, I'm pleased to turn it over to Alana.
Thank you, Scott, and thank you, AARP guests, for being here today. As Scott mentioned, we're going to look at winter classics that you may already know and love and tweak them to be smarter comfort foods and a little bit more nourishing for this winter season. So as Scott mentioned, I'm a registered dietitian. I own a nutrition private practice, and I'm also part of the AARP Personalized Dietitian Network. So if you were to sign up for AARP Personalized Nutrition, I may be one of the dietitians that you meet with. I am originally from Connecticut. As mentioned, that's where I have my degree, but I currently reside in sunny St. Petersburg, Florida. I know many people in the United States are frigid freezing right now, so I am happy to be in Florida. Let's see. So just a disclaimer, before starting any new diet and exercise program, please check with your doctor and discuss any exercise and or diet changes with them before beginning. So today we're going to look at how to make your comfort foods a bit smarter for heart health, gut health, and your overall well-being without losing the taste. So the holidays just passed, and maybe you have some health-related resolutions this January. Even if you don't, adding more nutrition to each meal is never a bad idea. So let's look at how to do that with food you already find appetizing. So as I mentioned, most areas of the United States are chilly right now. It's winter months. We want to nourish our bodies with warm foods like stews, soups, casseroles, baked goods. Those tend to be foods that, we add heavy cream, extra butter, beef fat, things like that too. But we can still fully enjoy them and have them be healthy. So winter is usually not a season that we're reaching for raw fruits and veggies. Besides being cold, those things are generally not in season, so they're more expensive and not as tasty. I'm here to tell you, you don't have to stick to salads to have a healthy diet. It's natural for the human body to have a diet that follows the seasons. If you think, when we were hunters and gatherers, we weren't eating raw tomatoes and cucumbers in January. It just doesn't make sense. So during this presentation, I would like you to think of a few of your favorite foods that you eat when it's cold out. Maybe even jot them down if you have a pen and paper nearby. By the end of this presentation, my goal for you is to have 2 to 3 ways to make that dish more nutrient-packed and increase its ability to work harder for your body. So let's talk about what's your why. Eating a healthy diet and maintaining an exercise routine are important for health and longevity. But what is your specific why? Why are you here today listening to this talk? Why are you interested in making your meals a little healthier? Before we move on, Scott, do you mind muting yourself? There's just a little bit of background noise.
Oh, yeah, you bet.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry about
So why are you here listening to this talk today? Why are you interested in making your meals a little healthier? Maybe it's because of your family. You want to increase your longevity. Maybe you have an athletic performance goal. A lot of people are loving pickleball right now. Maybe you want to be able to move on the court faster. Maybe you want to help, your recovery joint pain after you get off the pickleball court. Another reason, maybe you have a chronic disease and you want to try to make little tweaks to make that chronic disease more manageable. And maybe you have a vacation coming up that you want to be have less fatigue for so you can enjoy to the fullest. Perhaps, I have an image here of someone walking their dog in the woods during the fall. Very, very nice scene there. Maybe you want to be able to walk your dog for longer periods of time. Or you just want new ideas for your dinner party to enjoy with friends. Just think about, as we're beginning this talk, what's your why? Why are you here? So let's look at some helpful winter foods that are already healthy, no tweaks needed. So some foods, root vegetables, they're all in season right now. They're high in fiber and antioxidants. Beans or lentils, you can buy them whether, dried or canned. You can add extra fiber and protein to your meals with those. Whole grains like barley and oats, they have fiber, vitamins, and minerals. And bone broth based soups, great for this period of time. They're high in protein and minerals. If you can hear, my voice is sounds a little congested. I'm having my first cold in over 2 years, and I am actually sipping on bone broth right now, because even though I am in Florida, it is a little chilly by our standards. So let's see. So some simple tips to make your favorites work harder for you. Bulk up your meals, add in vegetables, add in another source of fiber like beans or lentils. So a great example that I use every week in my meal rotation is bolognese. So generally that's, red sauce with meats. You can use half ground meat and half lentils. So if you batch cook the lentils, you get them from dry in the dry bean aisle, and you cook up a few portions of those and you freeze half of it and then use half for, let's say, your bolognese or a soup that night. And then you're ready to go with the lentils later on when you want to use the frozen ones. This is a great tip to make something have more fiber, less expensive too. The cost of beef has risen a lot recently. If you make your lentils, especially if you make them ahead of time, you can stretch your budget too with this tip. Another thing you can add into something like a pasta dish or a soup is a neutral flavor beans, such as white beans. Those will add fiber and protein as well. So besides bulking up your meals with veggies and beans and lentils, you can use lower sodium alternatives. So when you're making your favorites like a casserole or a soup, you can consider the low salt version of your favorite canned good. If there's not a low salt version, or you already have some that's not low salt, you can rinse those off. Pour the beans or green beans, whatever you have in a can that you're using for your recipe, pour it into a colander, rinse it off. You're getting rid of most of that extra sodium, and without losing the flavor or damaging the ingredient. And also, it would be important to cut back on saturated fats. So an easy way to do this is recipes with cheese, just decrease the amount. You'll still get the flavor of the cheese, just decrease the amount. It doesn't need to be as gooey. Or use a leaner cut of meat. These are all good, simple tips. So we'll dive a little deeper into those. But right now I want to look at what vegetables are in season. So shopping for produce in season is not only a great way to save money, but it will be at its peak as far as flavor and nutrition. So when you go to the grocery store, generally you can see what's in season based on what's on sale. But it's a good idea to also look at, like, I got this information from the USDA website that just tells us what's in season for our region. So this is the general United States that I used for this presentation, since guests today are from all regions. So you look at root vegetables, carrots, potatoes, parsnips, turnips, beets, all in season. Cruciferous veggies, to me, are the most delicious ones, but some people don't like these. So you can skip these if these are not your cup of tea. But leafy greens, kale, Swiss chard, collard greens, really easy way to add additional nutrients to a soup. Just throw some of those in, really no extra prep. You're just tossing them in and they wilt. Other Vegetables in season, pumpkin, winter squash, okra, celery, and bell peppers. You notice a lot of these are high in vitamin C too. So that's nature's way of saying, hey, you might need some more vitamin C. Winter's here, you might be getting sick. So fruits that are in season. Apples, avocados, bananas, grapefruit, grapes, kiwi, lemons, limes, oranges, pears, plantains, pomegranates. So you have a wide variety. So these are a good time to buy these fruits to have them on hand for snacks or to add to a salad or as a dessert after your meal. And again, fruits high in vitamin C. We all need more vitamin C right now. Another important factor to look at during the winter months is our hydration. So I want everyone to take a moment right now. If you have a cup of water next to you, take a sip. We all need to make sure that we keep our hydration up, and it could be deceiving in the winter months. We're not sweating, but the dry air, especially if you have the heat on, it's drying us out faster. So we have more fluid loss through just breathing. Even though we're not sweating, we're breathing out the fluid as well. So less thirst, our body isn't reminded that we have to drink more, but dehydration can affect our energy levels, digestion, immunity, how our skin is looking. So that's why it's important to sip fluids throughout the day. So some ideas: warm fluids, herbal teas, broth. I put a note here, caution with salt. I get a good bone broth from Aldi that doesn't have salt added. So it's a good way to have something different than just water, but you're getting nutrients from that as well as you're sipping fluids. Lemon water, some water-rich foods, soups, citrus, yogurt, oatmeal, all things that naturally have fluid, and that's a good way to increase your hydration as well. Keeping a water bottle visible at all times, even when you're inside. Keep it where you sit to watch TV or read your book, or like right now, taking sips throughout this talk. So pair drinking water with other habits. So like if you're drinking coffee, have water with that. So sip your coffee, also sip your water. Maybe every time you stand up, you think, oh, I stood up from reading this book. Let's go get some water. It's also important to move around move around every hour anyway, and not keep seated, especially in the winter when we don't really want to exercise outside because it's cold. So we want to avoid those dehydration points. Common signs of mild dehydration: fatigue, dry skin, dry lips, constipation, dark yellow urine. If you're seeing those things, it's time to make sure you're hydrating more. So let's go back to those recipes that you may enjoy in the winter that you might think need to be tweaked a little because they're, comfort foods. You love them, but you want them to be more nutritious so you could have them more often and not just as the occasional treat. So let's think of the creamy soups you enjoy. So a common issue with those, they're high in saturated fat because they do in fact use cream. So one way to do that is to cut how much cream you use. So you can use blended beans. How would you do this? You get a can of the neutral flavored bean that I mentioned before, like a white bean, rinse it off, get rid of the excess salt, and then you put it in your soup. This works well with, like any cream-based soup that you're going to blend, because then you just blend the beans in. And I'm not just saying this because I'm a dietitian, but I promise you will not really be able to taste those neutral beans, and they'll be adding fiber and creaminess. So you can really decrease the amount of cream that you use. Another idea works a little bit different, but it would be cauliflower. You can add in some steamed cauliflower and cream that as well to still give yourself that creaminess, but cutting down on the actual amount of cream you use. So another dish, casserole, usually heavy on cheese, pasta. Good way to upgrade that would be to add in vegetables, whole grains like quinoa, whole grain pasta, simply just switching from, the white penne that doesn't have whole grains to a whole grain penne. It increases some protein and it increases your nutrients, including fiber. Mashed potatoes, great with a steak, and a side of broccoli, something like that. But a lot of times we add in a lot of butter, maybe some cream, sometimes some cheese. And mashed potatoes tend to be lower in fiber. So again, you could try using half potato, half cauliflower. And instead of using all butter, you can switch for a healthier fat that's a little higher in omega-3s, maybe like an olive oil, something of that sort, avocado oil, just some simple swaps to increase the amount of healthy fats in the mashed potatoes. Another one, chili, maybe, football, Super Bowl's coming up, you're making your favorite chili. I'm not saying change your chili recipe for Super Bowl, that would be crazy. But if you want to enjoy it on every Sunday, maybe we look at how to make that less high in sodium. So again, rinsing canned goods, using more herbs and spices versus just plain salt, using unsalted beans, and then choosing a leaner meat so that there's less fat. And also, cutting the amount of meat and making it more of a bean chili would be a great idea. Baked goods, they tend to be lower in fiber. So if you're having a baked good regularly, I'm not telling you to, take your famous banana bread recipe and, add in other things that kind of mess up your traditional taste. You can enjoy that in moderation. But if you're having something regularly, you might want to consider adding more fiber. So subbing half of the flour with oats or whole wheat flour, or instead of using, a lot of chocolate chips or something like that, use nuts like walnuts, pecans, and also using seeds. Like you can add in a little bit of flaxseed for great healthy fats, as well as adding in fiber. So AARP Personalized Nutrition has a great tool to look at your recipes. We are going to take a look at that now. I'm going to pause this. So if you are a member with AAR Personalized Nutrition, you have access to this tool that I'm about to show you. It's a great tool for tweaking your favorite recipes to make them healthier, or even your recipes that you have at home if you just simply want to see how many calories does this have, how much protein, how much fiber, how much fat. If you want to see that, this would be the tool for you to use to analyze how your recipes are working for you already. So this is a screen record that I did before the presentation that I'm going to talk you through to how you can use this tool when you log on to your AARP Personalized Nutrition platform. Back to that here. All right, perfect. So once you log in, this is what you'll see. You'll see the menu here. So then you are going to navigate to the recipe tab up top here. So you're going to either have that recipe from your home collection or you're going to find one online. If you find one online, all you need to do is copy the URL and bring it to here, the recipe analyzer button, where you're going to enter your recipe. So you'll just click that and you'll paste in the URL. We'll go over how to do it from a URL first, and then we'll go over your recipe. So once you click that, sometimes the system will come up with two different recipe lists, but you're just going to choose the correct one, generally the longer one. So hit choose this, and then it'll automatically populate your ingredients as well as the directions on the bottom there, along with the cook time from the recipe from the website. It's pretty intelligent how it does all this without you having to input in ingredients. So let's say, I'm actually gonna pause this real quick. So let's say we are looking at this recipe and we already have most of these ingredients and we don't have time to go to the grocery store, but we are missing a few. So this is where I would alter the recipe. So I already deleted the white wine. So let's say I don't have white wine and I don't want to go out and buy it. I would just hit delete. Now we're looking at juniper berries. I predict those would be pretty hard to find at the grocery store. I don't really want to look for them. I delete it. Now, red currant jelly, also feel like that will be hard to use. I have a leftover cranberry sauce and I Googled that would be a good substitution. I could add that in here and swap it out. So you can see your directions there too. You could hit analyze recipe, and then you can see your changes here. So again, just to review, you can use this. Sorry if that's buffering a little. You can use this to edit the ingredients based on what you have at home, adding in ingredients, swapping out ingredients. Those are all things you can do from this recipe analyzer. So now we put in the recipe from the URL and alternate based on what we have at home or what we don't want to put in. And now we can add it to our meal. So if you're using this regularly, perhaps you have, a day that you want to add it to, that you're going to make it. So this day I chose Thursday, I believe. So I'll just scroll down and add it to my menu. Later on, I'll go in and delete these other things because I'm not going to have 2 meals for dinner that day. So now I'm going to show you what it looks like on the menu for that day. We switch over to Thursday. Okay, here it is here. So I can go into the recipe. And let's say I was going to have 4 people eating this recipe. Now I'm only having 2. I can change it so the amount will change and then it'll automatically populate in my grocery list as well. Or perhaps I want to eat more than 1 serving. I can change that here too, and it'll alter how many calories I'm eating from that meal and move it there as well. When I screen recorded this, I was moving quite fast. Apologies. So that is how you would use the recipe that you found from the internet. So now we'll go in and see how to put in a recipe that you have from your own. So instead of hitting fetch a recipe from the website, you would input your own. So let's look at a banana bread. I didn't put in a full recipe, for time's sake, but let's say we want to look at your banana bread recipe. So we would then, recipe source, maybe someone in your family. So we'd add in the ingredients one by one. So put in the amounts. You can choose whatever you'd like. And then again, I'm not going to put in the full recipe, but I'll add another ingredient just so you can see what happens in the nutrition facts. So we have some whole wheat flour, adding in that more fiber. Perfect. You can put your instructions there as well. Analyze the recipe. Look at the nutrients so you could see how many nutrients this recipe would have. And then you can also add it to your meal if you know when you're going to eat it. So then you can keep track of your nutrition for that day. So this is just a summary of how to use the recipe analyzer tool on AARP Personalized Nutrition. Again, you can copy and paste a URL in there, or you can put your own recipe from your collection as well. And then just like you might be able to do on the website, here it's easier. You can switch the amount that who you're cooking for, the amount that you want to eat, and then it would adjust your menu based on that information. So what's important is that we're enjoying our food, right? This presentation is not to tell you, take your comfort foods and get rid of all the yummy stuff and add in things that are full of fiber and protein. No, it's making little changes so that that meal works harder for you and helps improve your health as it is. So not every food needs to be made healthier. You can enjoy your favorite recipes guilt-free. Most foods can have a place in the diet in moderation. So some more examples of foods that are already delicious and healthy that you're possibly already eating that you don't need to alter, like oatmeal with nuts and berries, lentil soup, roasted root vegetables, homemade stew with lean beef or chicken, chili made with beans and tomatoes. These are foods that are already possibly on your menu that are delicious and good for you. So you want to enjoy the season while nourishing your body. Again, small swaps add up. You want to focus on balance, not perfection. Use the recipe analyzer to test your favorite family dishes and how they can fit into your specific diet. Choose fiber-rich carbs like beans, lentils, whole grains. Those are a good swap with not, let's say white pasta, white rice, things like that. easy to get more nutrients from there. And add in healthy fats like olive oil, nuts, avocados, seeds, and enjoy the comfort foods. They can be nourishing too in moderation. And again, healthy eating is about adding nourishment, not taking away comfort. And another point to add on is circling back to what is your why? So think about what your why was and see, can I use any of these tips to, make that why become a reality? So perhaps the performance-based athletic goal, using these tips to feel less sluggish, swapping out that fiber and having more fiber, less high fat meats, things like that will make you feel less sluggish. So think about that. And then if you wrote down a dish in the beginning, as I asked you to, that is maybe your favorite comfort food, can you use any of these tips to add in the fiber, add in the protein, add in the hydration? And again, it is winter. As I mentioned, it's cold. We might not want to go outside and exercise, but it's important to move the body. So remembering to, get up once an hour, move around, keep the blood flowing, and that's another great way to nourish your body. So if you'd like to find out more about the AAR personalized nutrition site, you can click on the link here, or this is probably not a hyperlink, but it's very easy to remember, nutrition.aarp.org. You can get personalized meal plans, which can be adjusted to meet your individual tastes. You can track your progress. You can log what you eat. So maybe similar to apps you've used in the past, this one is highly intelligent, where you can not only create your own menu, but you can put in what you're eating. Let's say you went to a restaurant, ate something like that. You could put it in to track your progress, track how many calories you're eating, fiber, protein, etc. The AARP personalized nutrition also has options where you can add on dietitian assistance. So you can have sessions with a dietitian to further individualize your menu. And again, we looked at today specifically how to use the recipe analyzer, so you can incorporate that into your menu as well. And now we're going to look at if we have any questions. Scott, if you want to come off mute, and if we have any questions, I'd love to answer those now.
Okay, there, it just took me a second to get off. Yeah, thanks, Alana. That was great. I think if part of the goal was to make me hungry, I'm hungry now. That's, that good food. Let's get to the audience questions. There were several in here. One of them was, the earlier one was, I would like to know how to use artichokes more, avocados, and beets. I am vegan for 10 years. I also want to avoid diabetes, was the question. So looks like they're talking about specific foods.
Yeah, so if you are a user of the AARP personalized nutrition, this would be a great use for that tool. You can you can search artichokes under the menu, and you can check off that you want recipes. So it's not just going to give you a plain old artichoke where you would log it. It will give you recipes where artichokes are incorporated, or avocados, or beets. So, but besides the AARP personalized nutrition tool, just off the top of my head, one unique use for artichokes, because they're easy to use if you get the canned ones or the jarred ones and you put them on a salad or something like that, or you make a dip out of them. Another way to use that's actually great in the winter is to roast it. And then it's a good appetizer, like when you're having a dinner party, something like that. Maybe a book club. You can have a roasted artichoke where people just they rip off the little leaves of the artichoke, and then you eat the bottom of it. And then you can have like a little olive oil and herb dip that goes with that. Just something off the top of my head would be a great use for that. That's very nourishing in the winter, and it's warm, and it's great too.
Great. Second question is, does olive oil turn to trans fat when using it during cooking at high temperatures, such as roasting root vegetables or sauteing vegetables on the stovetop? It's more of a nutrition science question, but I know you can.
Yes. So no, it does not. The only issue with cooking with olive oil is you want to avoid high temperatures because you don't want it can burn at higher temperatures and it basically doesn't work well with your food at high temperatures. So broiling, sauteing anything above medium heat on the stove. For those types of things, I would recommend an avocado oil, but no, olive oil does not turn to trans fat.
Yeah, great. There was another question for a clarification that I think I'll go ahead and answer, which is, will is there a cost to the tool you just demonstrated? And just for clarification's sake, if you go to the website, the nutrition.aarp.org, you will see that's for AARP members and registered online members. You'll see at the very top under free recipe analyzer link, you can go in there and do the free recipe analyzer that Alana just demonstrated on the presentation. But to answer your question, if you want to go farther and be able to take that recipe and then put it into a particular meal, then which is another part of what Alana was showing, that is part of the subscription for the meal plan creator that you can also see and take a look at on the website at nutrition.aarp.org to give you more information about the different subscription models that she mentioned. So another question is, my favorite comfort food is mac and cheese. How could I make that healthier?
Great question. Mine too. It's
Yeah.
definitely my favorite comfort food as well. So a recipe that I tried and it's now in my regular menu is adding in butternut squash. So just hear me out. There is a specific recipe for this. You can look it up, but you would use half the amount of cheese and substitute in butternut squash. Now, butternut squash is kind of a pain to cook if you buy the actual whole butternut squash, but you can get it in the frozen food aisle. So then it's easier to cook with. So it's because it's already soft and cooked. So you can use that and mix that in with the cheese and then the rest of your mac and cheese recipe and put that with the noodles. Another great thing to add to mac and cheese is frozen spinach. Frozen spinach, because it's frozen, doesn't have as much flavor as, fresh spinach that you're eating in a salad because it's been frozen and then you're cooking it. So I would challenge you to add in some frozen spinach to if you're having like a boxed mac and cheese or something like that. If you're making a homemade mac and cheese, definitely try the butternut squash trick. I think you'll be surprised.
Yeah, good. Another one, how can I tell a good recipe site from one that is not so good? What are some of your favorite recipe sites?
Good question. So I think if you are using the AARP personalized nutrition tool, those recipes in there are curated. They're chosen based on NutriStyle has gone in and said, these are reputable recipe sources. And there's
Mhm.
also recipes that have been created by their experts as well. So if you're using that tool, you know that the recipes that you're getting from there are good quality. For myself, I personally like using New York Times for my recipes. They have, great chefs, dietitians that make the recipes as well. But I keep my menu simple. I have recipes that I've been using forever that I don't even need to reference anymore, but I pretty much eat the same,
Hmm.
5 to 10 meals on rotation. So once
Yeah.
you get some good ones, you'll keep rotating. But again, the AARP personalized nutrition recipes, New York Times. I know some people even use ChatGPT. It can be great use for ChatGPT if you just put in what you have in your fridge. Say, hey, I want a recipe with these things. I don't want to go to the grocery store, and it can usually spit out a great recipe for you.
Yeah, great. There's another question. I'm confused about the new push toward using beef tallow. That seems to go against what I've known about good fats. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, I agree. I can understand why you're confused. I would say keep doing what works for you. I personally am not adding beef tallow into my home cooking regimen. I prefer the taste of oils like olive oil, avocado oil, the more neutral oils because I'm trying to get the taste from my food.
Hmm.
So I would continue going with what you've learned about healthy fats. And if you want to experiment with some beef tallow, that's fine, but we don't have to overcomplicate things.
Right, right. Another question, is xylitol an acceptable sugar substitute for heart patients?
So this is very specific. I would
Yes, it is.
ask I would ask some follow-up questions to be able
Right, right.
to answer this correctly. I am not a huge fan of sugar substitutes in baked goods and things like that. That's why I didn't
Hmm.
talk about them in this presentation.
Hmm.
I didn't talk about decreasing the sugar, though you certainly can, just decreasing the amount of, actual sugar, whether it's brown sugar, cane sugar, etc. You can decrease the amount. You can add in something like some fruits instead to get the sugar taste without having as much actual sugar. I don't like how sugar substitutes act in baked goods. I don't think they work well, and
Right.
specifically this one, I would not recommend it at high
Yeah,
amounts
yeah.
by any means.
Makes sense. Last question so far. How strict should I be? You kind of answered this in looking at your how you were maneuvering into the recipe. How strict should I be in following the recipe instructions? I find that some of the instructions are vague. Um, I got the impression when you're going through, you're taking the spirit of the recipe, making those substitutes as for the reasons that you have, and then just going with it. What's your take on how strict or how loose you would be with a recipe, especially if the instructions aren't clear?
Yeah, so if you're baking, you have to follow the instructions usually to a T.
Right. Mhm.
If you're cooking a meal, um, I I ad hoc all the time. I don't I don't follow the instructions to a T. So I
Right.
would say it's good to have them there for guidance, but if they're confusing or overwhelming, don't worry about it. Ingredient list is the most important. As
Mhm.
far as nutrition is affected, you're not once you have the ingredients there, you're not affecting too much nutrition unless you don't burn something or overcook it. But if
Mhm.
you generally know how to work with, like a pasta or veggies, sauteing and roasting, I wouldn't worry too much about the instructions, especially if they're convoluted and complicated.
Right.
It's if you're cooking your average Tuesday night meal, you're not worrying about blanching and sous vide and those fancy things. So just keep it
Yeah, yeah.
simple.
Yep, that's great advice. Well, we don't have any more questions, so that concludes this webinar session. And I want to thank you again, Alana, for providing these helpful insights and inspiring strategies on how to take our favorite recipes and comfort foods and make them even more personalized in our lives. I hope you all found that helpful as well. Have a great rest of your day, everybody, and thanks for tuning in. Eat well.